Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is Noraina Shakira bint Fauzi and I am the first presenter. So, independent work. Do you guys ever heard about this word? No? Let me explain to you guys. So, according to Nyla and Victor 2016, independent work defined as a planned individual or collective classroom and extracurricular work carried out within the framework of the educational process under the guidance and supervision of a teacher. So, independent work is often used to provide students for homework and assignment. Independent work refers to seat work.
So let me give you one scenario. So this is Teacher Donna. Teacher Donna teach 8th grade language art classes. She introduced a unit of study on Chinese culture designed to coincide with the Chinese New Year. She began by having students consider what they knew about Western astrology. She handed out a KWL sheet divided into 3 columns labeled What I Know, What I Want to Know, and What I Learned. On a whiteboard was a list of astrological signs and the dates that each cover. Students were to determine what their zodiac sign was and jot down 5 things that they already knew about it and 5 things they want to know. Then, Donna gave students a packet of information about the zodiac that they were to read to complete the 3rd column. Students were allowed to form groups if they wanted or to work alone. While students completed the task, Donna walked up and down the aisles, assisting, encouraging, and questioning. This scenario describes the instructional situation known as independent work.
Some teachers view the term independent work with negative connotation such as bored, passive student doing repetitive and tedious worksheet. Some teachers acknowledge that whenever she heard about the term seat work, she immediately thought about a bad teacher sitting at their desk, grading students' paper, writing lesson plan, and even reading newspaper while their students do boring work designed to keep them in their seat and quiet. Some other teachers view independent work as opportunity to differentiate instruction and pull individuals or small groups while the other students are working on independent activity. Some teachers said that seat work could be a valuable activity. He used seat work to give kids the opportunity to practice skills like making prediction, value interference, generalization. Intellectual skills like this benefit from practice just like a backhand stroke in tennis. If I have 27 kids doing an assignment in class, I can walk around, see immediately what they are doing, give individual critique, catch them if they are having a problem. I cannot give the individual immediately feedback if the work done as homework. So, this is the example of application of independent work in Malaysia, which is firstly, teacher prepare student homework assignments so that the student finish their homework on their own. And second, teacher ask student to form individual artwork in class. For example, the teacher gives the student freedom to draw anything as long as it is within the theme set by the teacher. And lastly, forming groups within the classroom and ask them to prepare content for presentation of topic. So I am certain everyone has experienced these 3 examples. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I am Fatin. Independent work is an initiative for teachers to use in teaching their students. However, there are also problems that teachers can face in implementing independent work. There are 6 problems that are frequently associated with it. First, the assignment is not meaningful to students. It's not only a waste of precious learning time, but also foster boredom, alienation, and misbehavior. If students do not perceive the value of a seat work assignment, they are unlikely to become invested in it. To avoid this problem, evaluating the activities the teacher assigns is essential. In this way, they are better able to connect the task with students' background and experience, target particular problems that students are having, and provide increased individualization resources. The second problem is that some teachers give independent work that does not match students' varying achievement levels. For example, some students think reading assignments seems too easy, so they finish reading quickly and fill their time by doodling, looking out the window, and reading magazines. Others seem to find the reading more difficult and need a few more minutes. One strategy is to use open-ended tasks that allow students working on a variety of levels to complete the work successfully. For example, when Donna's students read a chapter in their text, she often forgoes the end of chapter question, which often have one correct answer. Instead, she might ask students to create their own question and answer them. At other times, she asks a broad enough questions that almost everyone in the class can respond. The third problem is that the teacher does not provide his students with clear, complete directions. For example, at the beginning of the period, the teacher tells the students to start reading the chapter on persuasive essays, but says nothing about why they are to read it, how long they have, or whether they should take notes. In other words, she merely tells them to do it, without explaining the purpose for reading or suggesting strategies that might be used. Nor does the teacher explain that they will be writing their own essays later in the period. Obviously, the teacher could have avoided this problem had he made sure that his oral direction were clear and complete. A fourth problem is lack of monitoring. If the teacher is not going to provide supervision and support, he might as well have his students do the assignments at home. The teacher should circulate through the room, checking on students' progress, helping them with problems, and providing feedback. The purpose of circulating is not simply to monitor behavior, but also allows the teacher to monitor students' understanding of the assignment. Fifth, the teacher does not really plan for the fact that students work at different paces. They might begin seat work at the same time, but they never finish at the same time. Students who cannot complete assignments in the allotted time might have to do them for homework. Students who complete their work earlier than you expected need something to keep them occupied. If they must sit and wait with nothing to do, they might distract students who are still working. The strategy we can use is plan out the class activity. When the class activities are structured, the students rarely finish early. The students have to understand what to do and why they are doing it. They also need to know what's expected upon completion. If the teacher doesn't do this, some kids may rush through thinking, I'll finish real fast and then I'll have time to do my homework. If they know they will have a follow-up related assignment, they keep going. Finally, the teacher never makes it clear whether students can ask peers for assistance. In some classes, teachers encourage students to work collaboratively. In other classes, giving or receiving help is tantamount to cheating. This latter situation can present a real dilemma for students. On one hand, there is their need to follow the teacher's directions and to stay out of trouble. On the other hand, is their need to complete the assignment successfully and to assist friends who are having difficulty. In general, teachers should not only allow but also encourage students to help one another. If there is students who don't want to do anything on their own, who just want someone to give them the answer, teachers should prevent this from happening by assigning different problems to students sitting next to each other. This allows them to help each other but not to copy. Although there is value of peer assistance, there are also times when the students are not allowed to help one another. In these situations, teachers should be careful to explain that the ground rules are different. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
Hi everyone, my name is Siti Nadira binti Johari and I will explain on recitation and discussion. First, recitation. Recitation is a direct teacher-centered approach in which the teacher asks specific short answer questions with a specific answer in mind. The author gives you a visual hint about who the subject of these poems is. What is the hint?
The picture of Abraham Lincoln.
Right. What do we know about Abraham Lincoln?
He got rid of slavery.
Yes, he abolished slavery. The example shows that the question is not request for a needed information, but a way to find out what students know. The interaction is more likely a quiz shows than a true conversation. There is a pattern of recitation which is IRE and IRF. IRE is stand for initiate then respond then evaluate, and for IRF is stand for initiate, respond, follow-ups, where teacher initiates by asking questions, students respond with answer, and then teacher will evaluate or follow up. In this recitation method, a teacher may use probing questions in order to help the class to come out to the correct answer. A probing questions make a student think more deeply about the topic at hand, thereby engaging him or her in more cognitively rigorous instruction. For example, like, teacher will ask, "What do you mean by that?" Or, "Can you give another example of that? Do you feel that is right?" So, this recitation method is best used for the memorization of facts-based level knowledge. Next, let's take a look for discussion. The pattern of discussion is IRRR, which stands for initiate, respond, and respond. The discussion method is the means by which people share their experience, idea, and attitudes. For example, let's watch this conversation in classroom where the topic discussed was, why cannot the government just print more money to pay off debt?
I think maybe I know. You know how they say that everyone can be a millionaire? There's got to be some poor people. It's like that.
Yeah, like when I play Monopoly, I buy every property, so I go into bankruptcy. So I take out a loan and I'm ruining the game because I'm not playing with the money I'm supposed to have. It's like cheating.
Yeah, that money doesn't really exist.
What do you mean? If the government prints the money, it does exist.
Every property, so I go into bankruptcy.
Hold on. Stuart, then Roy, then Alicia. Can you guys see how the discussion going? Discussion method enables to engage in orderly verbal interchange and to express thought on particular subject. The discussion involves two-way communications between participants. During the discussion, the teacher spends some time listening while the students spend some time talking. For example, like, teacher essentially stay out of the interaction except for making sure that the students have opportunity to speak when the interaction get excited. This is contrast with recitations where the students speak directly to one another. They comment on one another's contribution, they question, they agree, and they explain. Next, this table shows the different characteristics of recitation and discussion. For predominant speaker, recitation includes 2, 3, or more teachers, while for discussion, it is half or more of the students. Next, typical exchange for recitation is where teacher questions to the student answer and teacher evaluations, IRE. For discussion, it is a mix of statements and questions by mix of the teacher and students. Besides, the pace of recitation is many brief and fast exchanges, while for discussion, it is contrast, where it is a fewer, longer, and slower exchanges. The primary purpose for recitation is to check student comprehension, and for discussion, it is to stimulate variety of responses, encourage students to consider different points of view, foster problem solving and critical thinking, and lastly, examine implication. Therefore, the answer get from the recitation is in predetermined right or wrong, same right answer for all students. While there is no predetermined right or wrong for this question, it can have different answer for different students. Lastly, the recitation evaluation is in right or wrong and by teacher only. For discussion, the evaluation of discussion is agree or disagree by both teacher and students. A lot of beginning teachers get these two mixed up. They have been told that they are supposed to ask a lot of questions, so they do. But often the questions are yes or no questions, or the questions that elicit your answer without of depth. For example, like, what do all atoms have in common? Or how many protons are in this atom? That's its recitation. In this question, the majority of the questions are critical though questions and the response time is longer. You are trying to develop an idea or draw a conclusion. You are not just reviewing. Instead, you are working toward a conceptual goal.
Now, you already know what is recitation all about. Basically, a recitation can vary little depending on the course and what the teacher has outlined. In order to make the recitation classroom success, there must be an effective tips to follow. Hi, my name is Husna Atirah and I will continue the presentation with implementing effective recitation. Before we jump to implement effective recitation, let's look on the challenges of recitation. There are 3 challenges which are unequal participation among students, balancing the need to maintain pace and involvement with the need to provide feedback and time to think, and the IRE format might be incompatible with the communication patterns that students bring to school. Please note that from these 3 challenges, here it comes the effective ways to implement recitation. Unequal participation among students can happen when teacher did not give the chance for students who seems to be shy or has introvert personality in class. For example, in the classroom, when you as a teacher ask a question and there are a lot of students who determined to answer the question and only a few students who did not raise their hand because of shy or have no idea at all, then we tend to choose the students who raise their hand because, after all, we are likely to get the response or answer that we want. Sometimes, teacher do understands the student who have no idea to answer because the teacher do not want the student to feel embarrassed or uncomfortable. But this can be a problem because students tend to learn more if they are actively participating in the classroom. Move on to the second challenge of recitation is balancing the need to maintain pace and involvement with the need to provide feedback and time to think. As for this challenge, sometimes teachers tend to want an immediate answer right after asking the question. This can be a problem for students with or without learning disabilities because it does make sense that students also need time to think. In order to answer the question, give students time to think first, then generate the answer based on their pace. And after the student done, teacher can call on another student. Don't rush the student, teacher. As for providing feedback to students, teacher need to be ready because not all students in the classroom tend to answer the question with correct response. Then, what does teacher need to do? Teacher must prepare first in order to help the students. Now, reach to the final challenge is to recognize the IRE format might be incompatible with the communication patterns that students bring to school. How can this happen? Alright, let's flash back to your high school memories. Do you have any experience to have a classmate with different gender? Or do you have any classmate with different races? Did you guys notice that different gender and races have a different kind of communication and interaction? That is why sometimes the IRE format might be unsuitable with some students. This is the challenge that teachers need to encounter so that the participation in the classroom will not turn to dull and boring, or sometimes the student cannot understand. Implementing effective recitation. There are 6 ways on how to implement effective recitation in the classroom. Let's look at it one by one. First, distribute chances to participate. Teacher can increase the participation and make all the students to join in the question and answer by a lot of strategy, such as pick names randomly from a cup, check off names on a seating chart, or use a pattern turn-taking. For example, the situation on a pattern turn-taking where each student should give only one possible answer to the problem. That is how teacher can distribute the chances to all students. One more thing to be highlighted, teacher can increase participation by not grabbing the first answer and moving on to the next question, but stays to hear another more response so that another student have a chance to give out their ideas. Second, provide time to think. It is important to provide time for students before respond to the question. There is no point asking a well-formulated or higher-level question to stimulate critical thinking if teacher don't allow a sufficient wait time. Based on Rowe's research, it showed that extending wait time to 3 to 5 seconds increases the quality and length of the student's answer. Extending wait time also beneficial for students with learning disabilities who tend to process information more slowly than other students. Next, teacher also can tell the students that we do not expect an immediate answer. This will give students an opportunity to formulate their response. Allowing students to write an answer to your question is another way to provide them time to think. Written responses also help to maintain students' engagement because everyone has to construct a response. In addition, students who are uncomfortable speaking can read from their written papers. Third, teacher need to stimulate and maintain student interest in the classroom. Teacher can inject mystery, suspense, humor, and novelty into their questioning techniques. Teacher also can challenge students to think by asking the question out of the box. This will help to increase their critical thinking. By incorporated physical activity, it can maintain the students' interest during the lesson because students tend to feel bored easily. Then teacher must set up an activity that is safe to conduct in the classroom to light up the situation of question and answer. Fourth, provide feedback to students. If a student's answer reveals confusion, how can teacher provide appropriate feedback while maintaining the pace and momentum of the lesson? There are a set of guidelines that might be helpful. If student give correct and confident answer, teacher can simply ask another question or provide a brief verbal or non-verbal indication that they are correct, such as give them a thumbs up. If students are correct but hesitant, a more deliberate affirmation is necessary. Teacher might also explain why the answer is correct to reinforce the material. When students provide an incorrect answer, the feedback process is trickier. If the student has made a careless error, you can make a simple correction and move on to the next question. If student answer is incorrect, but the student can arrive at the correct answer with a little help, teacher can provide hints or prompts. Sometimes, it's useful to backtrack to a simple question. Lastly, if the students are simply unable to respond to the question, teacher do not belabor this issue because it helps to maintain the pace and allow students to save face. But teacher need to take note that this student needs to reteach on which part the student have difficulty. Fifth, teacher need to monitor the student comprehension by require overt response. Overt response is any viewable or exterior response. For example, having student hold up response card, physically display answer with manipulative materials, or put thumbs up or down. Then, using a steering group such as observing the performance of a sample students including low achievers to know when to move on. The sixth way to implement effective recitation is supporting the participant of diverse learning. Who are diverse learner? Diverse learners include children and students of all abilities from racially, ethnically, culturally, and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Teachers need to be more conscious of the pattern of asking questions. Teachers need to know who you call on, how often you call on them, and how you respond to their answer. Teachers need to be familiar with the discourse pattern characteristic of your culturally diverse student and consider whether some accommodation to students' discourse style is possible. Lastly, teachers need to teach explicitly about the discourse pattern they are expected in school and incorporate alternative response format designed to engage all students rather than just one or two. In conclusion, it is not a problem having a student with different gender or races because the way the teacher maintain the participation and active learning in the classroom are the most important. I think that's all from me. I shall pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
In discussion, teacher must carefully formulate the discussion question, making sure that it is not in a form that invites a yes or no, or either or answer, along with subsidiary questions, embedded questions, follow-up questions, and related questions. Teachers also have to create question outline, identifying at least 3 sub-questions and at least 4 alternative answers to the main questions. Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Nabiha binti Muhammad Sopian. So now I will proceed the presentation on implementing effective discussion. When you are learning to lead a discussion, keep in your mind that there are 7 ways on how to implementing an effective discussion in the classroom. First, it is wise to limit the size of the group. Size limitations are clearly necessary due to the interactive nature of small group teaching. Group size is detected by the type of interaction desired and by practical. It is difficult to have a student-centered discussion with a large number of participants. Fishbowl method can be used when the teacher has many students in the classroom. In this method, 5 or 6 students carry on the discussion in the middle of the room while the rest of the class sits in a large circle around them and act as observer and recorder. Another solution, teacher can divide class into small discussion groups of 5 with 1 student in each group acting as discussion leader. Second, arrange students so they have eye contact. Sitting needs to be intimate and flexible to be suitable. It is difficult to speak directly to someone if all you can see is the back of a head. The best way is students should move their desks into an arrangement that allows them to be face to face. Third, teach students discussion skills. Teachers should prepare students for participating in a student-centered discussion by explicitly teaching the prerequisite skills. Talk to each other, not just to the moderator. Don't monopolize. Ask others what they think. Don't engage in personal attack. Listen to others' ideas. Acknowledge others' ideas. Question irrelevant remarks. Ask for clarification. Ask for reason for others' opinion, and lastly, give reasons for your opinions. Fourth, act as facilitator rather than a questioner. This can be difficult for teachers who are accustomed to dominating or at least directing the conversation. In discussion, teachers have to start the discussion or activity, keep it going, and constantly monitor and control the learning. Initially, teacher must help the class focus on the question rather than giving answers to it. For example, invite the class to tell what they know about the questions or what it means to them. In discussion, there are two things that teachers should avoid. First, teachers should avoid from commenting after the first student's contribution. If teachers do, the interaction will quickly become IRE, in recitation. And teachers should not ask, what does someone else think about that? If teacher do that, the teacher invites statement of difference or oppositions to the first position, and your discussion will turn into debate. Fifth, ensure some students don't monopolize. A discussion can be an opportunity for some students to show how smart they are and to get airtime. So, it is important to watch out the that students don't monopolize the discussion. The solution can be by implementing a structured activity that requires each group members to be involved, assigning a specific role to the dominant student that limits participation, example, discussion recorder, or implementing time limits on individual contributions. Six, make sure discussion stays on track. Have a clear agenda for the discussion and list questions or issues on the board or on paper distribute to the class or projecting it on a screen. It is to inform and remind everyone of where the discussion is heading. When the discussion is not on the track, teacher should say, we seems a little off track here. How can we all get back on the same line of thought? Or, where are we now? What are we saying? Or maybe when the discussion is too fast, teacher can say, just a minute, I wonder whether we are not moving a little too fast here. Let's take a look closer at this idea. 7. Ask students to provide supporting evidence for opinions. To persuade someone to agree with you, you need to do more than declare your opinion and state the reasons why you hold the opinion. You must also explain and elaborate on your reasons by including facts, details, and examples. So let's move to the next slide. Types of questions for maintaining momentum in discussion. First, questions that ask for more evidence. Example, how do you know that? What data is that claim based on? What does the author say that supports your argument? Where did you find the view expressed in the text? What evidence would you give to someone who doubts your interpretation? Second, questions that ask for clarification. Example, can you put that another ways? What do you mean by that? What's an example of what you are talking about? Can you explain the term you just used? Third, linking or extension question. Example, is there any connection between what we have just said and what Emma was saying a moment ago? How does your comment fit in with Ukasha's earlier comment? How does your observation relate to what the group decided last week? Does your idea challenge or support what we seem to be saying? Fourth, hypothetical questions. Example, what might have happened if Kamal had missed the school bus? In the video we just saw, how might the story have turned out if Janas had caught the ball? If the author had wanted the teacher to be a more sympathetic figure, how might he have changed this conversation? Fifth, cause and effect questions. Example, what is likely to be the effect of the name calling? How might the rumor affect the school play? 6. Summary and synthesis questions. Example, What are the one or two most important ideas that emerge from this discussion? What remains unresolved or contentious about this topic? What do you understand better as a result of today's discussion? Last but not least, when planning discussions, think about the level of the questions that you ask. Are the questions designed to stimulate thinking and problem solving? Ask yourself whether you consistently dominate the interaction or whether you also provide opportunities for real discussion among the students. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi! My name is Nurihanis binti Abdul Razak and I will explain about the advantages and disadvantages of recitation and discussion method. So here we go! As you can see here, these are the advantages of recitation method. First, recitation method helps to increase students' interest in learning. By using recitation, students can learn in their own pace from the lesson and then self-study and make their own practice until it is ready as it should be. With this method, students will dare to write in their own way, responsible with the result of their writing, and will always remember with the material that is taught in the class. Second, recitation method helps to improve interaction among teachers and students. This is because students are working in cooperative learning groups with their peers and then teacher questioning the groups using Socratic dialogue if there is any question or problem when students completing the task or tutorial given. Third, teacher act as a guideline for students in learning process. Students can gain valuable insight, advice, and guidance from teacher when completing the task. For example, in mathematics class, students need teacher guidance when they are solving mathematics questions that sometimes confusing and difficult to solve. Therefore, teacher explanation will guide students to answer the question in the correct way and improve their understanding on the subject matter. However, there are disadvantages in recitation method. First, some students may have poor discipline and attitude in class. Students might keep distracted by other things when they are working the task given. For example, when teacher gives tutorial during science class, some students are not focused with the task given and they tend to talk to their friends that are not related to the task. Next, pressure and anxiety. Some students may feel pressure when they are left behind among their peers. For example, in mathematics class, not all students are able to solve the mathematics question given by the teachers, and they might feel lost and stressed when completing the task. Last but not least, students may feel rehashing during recitation method in class. This is because students who already understand the material may feel like they are being forced to study the content twice. For example, teacher repeat to teach the same topic from the previous lesson because some students are not fully understand on the topic. But for some students, they find this is unnecessary because they already understand the topic. There are many advantages by implementing discussion method in the classroom. First, it promotes active learning among students. Discussion method encourages students' participation in classroom that improve the learning environment. This is because discussion can help students acquire better communication skills as they learn to present their ideas clearly and briefly when they are presenting in the class. Second, discussion method encourages students' understanding and retention. Inquiry-based discussion helps students to understand the topic well and engage in decision-making and problem-solving. Students can ask for clarification if they don't understand the topic discussed or what someone else has said. This is good because students can learn through questions, comments, elaboration, and justification that are involved in discussion. Third, discussion method helps to motivate students toward further learning. We can see that cooperative learning among students lead them to learn together and develop students' thinking skill by increasing their interest in a variety of subjects, helping to clarify their understanding and perhaps changing their judgment on the subject matter. Therefore, discussion permits students to be active in their own learning, which increases their motivation to learn and makes the learning process more interesting. However, there are some disadvantages when implementing discussion method in classroom. First disadvantages is class size. As we know, class size affected all dimensions of the classroom climate, and class discussion become less effective if a class size greater than 20 students. As the class size become bigger, it is difficult to hear individuals' voice clearly during discussion. Second, disadvantages is classroom arrangement. The seating arrangement should allow students to have a clear view of instructional presentation without turning their desks or chairs around to improve social contact. We already learned from previous chapter that classroom arrangement is important because it directly affects students' ability to learn and teacher ability to teach. Third, discussion method leads to time consuming. The process of exploring the subject matter requires more time than classical lecture style instruction while keeping students on task in the discussion. Therefore, teacher requires more preparation and class time to cover the whole lesson. That's all from us, and I hope that all of you have gained new knowledge and insight on how to manage independent work, recitation, and discussion in the classroom.